Rev up your engines!
Well, you kind of knew it was going to be this way, but if you watched my video I put up last week about I challenged all the electric car and electric truck makers to send me a vehicle to prove they're not full of crap, saying you can actually drive these cross country and they're dependable and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm calling you all out, any of them. Give me one of these things to drive around for a year, to actually test it long term, short term, cold weather Rhode Island, hot weather Tennessee. Can you recharge them while you're driving around? Do they have problems? I already got the charger and everything set up, so that's no problem. What have I gotten back from these people? Zip, nada. Nothing. Of course they're not going to send me one because they're afraid of an honest mechanic who's been working on them for 53 years to tell the truth about electric cars because, to me at least, it seems they are full of crap. You can't drive them long distances. I even said in the video, send me an electric pickup truck and I'll have my grandson's trailer when we're picking up trucks and stuff and bringing them in to fix them up. Well, what they really do, we just came from pulling a big old flatbed 79 F-250 Ford with this Toyota Tundra with a V8. And that thing used up half a tank of gas going 74 miles because you're going to get horrible gas mileage pulling. Now with one of these electric pickup trucks, I want to see what's going to happen when they pull that. 200 something miles range. Will that go down to 80 miles or something? Who knows? I want to find this out. Obviously, these people are afraid. And none of them have contacted me to say, oh, we'll give you one to try out so all your viewers can see. So, hey, maybe you guys start whining about it. Say, hey, you're going to listen to Scotty? You're going to give him a car and let him try it out? Or are you just full of crap? Well, maybe they are all full of crap, and none of us will ever be able to test them out. They just want you to fork out a whole bunch of money. Then you find out, oh, gee, maybe it wasn't so good after you've spent the money. Tell them, send me one. I'll test them honestly. If something works, I tell you it works. I was happy with the electric bicycles the Chinese company sent me. Sure, limited range, 20 miles or so, but they're fun, and they work perfectly fine. But the electric cars, if they have bigger range, I would test them out. They didn't send me anything yet, and I'm going to keep calling them out until they do. Here we go with Tesla. They're at it again. They just had to recall all 53,822 of their vehicles that have that full self-driving system. Now, one, it should never be called full self-driving because it isn't. It's not legally allowed to even do that. Why they're even allowed to call it that, I don't know. Names mean nothing these days. But the hilarious thing is, the reason the government's forcing them to recall it is because programmed into the car, believe it or not, I guess they're always trying to pull a fast one at Tesla. They programmed into the vehicles that they could do a California stop, that they would just roll through a stop sign, not completely stop. Because people in California, I guess, originally did it all the time. Well, of course, it's illegal to do a California stop. The stop sign means stop, look, then go, not roll through it, right? Well, they had it in a program that these Teslas with the full self-driving, once engaged, could do a California stop, which is illegal. Now, the fact that these idiots programmed that into it in the first place, what did they think? No one's going to figure this thing out? I mean, they're driving them around, and the police are going to be noticed. Hey, look at that Tesla. It didn't stop. It just rolled through the stop sign and give them a ticket. And what are the people going to say? It wasn't me driving. It was the car. It was driving itself. You can't put a mark on my license. It was the car that was driving. They actually wrote that into the software. I don't know. They got something rattling around between their ears, and it's not brain cells. Next Muck says, does anybody know what the recommended battery cranking amp is for 2018 Honda Odyssey? The car's 36,000 miles. Came with 620 cold cranking amp that only has 10% life left now. The replacement batteries at Advanced Auto go between 730 and 760 cold cranking amps. The higher your cold cranking is, the better it is for your car. Now, you got to make sure the battery fits in your car. It's got a certain space for the battery. That's the problem with smaller Hondas. I've seen Civics. They got this tiny little battery. They don't last long. But there's no room to put a bigger battery in, so you're kind of screwed. You got to buy the smaller battery. The higher the cold cranking, better it is for your car. You're going to pay more for the battery. Any car, modern car like that Odyssey, you probably got a 100-something amp alternator on it. It can handle anything you put in there, the battery. The higher the cranking amps, the longer it's going to last, the better it's going to work in cold weather. So 730 to 760 is what they say they have. Buy the 760 if you want to get the one that's going to last the longest. S. Dawson says, got a 2010 Prius, ABS, traction control, and brake light warnings come on. They come on all at once. It lasts for a few miles, and they go back off for a day or two, and it happens again. Dealer said there were no codes, but they wanted to sell me brake flushes for $400. The way these cars are made today, especially the Toyotas, they have weird software. And generally, you have one thing go wrong, it'll trip the ABS, and the traction control. Now you say the brake light also goes on. I would assume that the brake light coming on is turning the other systems on. Could be as nutty as you're low on brake fluid, because when your brake fluid gets low, there's a float, tells you you're low on brake fluid. Trips that. On a lot of these Toyotas, it'll also turn the ABS and the traction control. It's just a software deal with the way they write the software. Check your brake fluid level. You could just be low on brake fluid, it's a 12-year-old Prius. Eventually, you lose a little brake fluid from evaporation as your brake pads wear. That space of them wearing with the pistons pushing is taken out by fluid, and eventually you will be low on fluid. So if you've never checked your brake fluid, you might just be low on brake fluid. I see that all the time. If your brakes work okay, they don't sink to the floor, you're not losing anything, no pressure. Of course, make sure you take your emergency brake off and don't leave it on. But I have seen that fixed a million times by just adding brake fluid. And I mean, it's 2010. If you never did have the whole system flushed up to get all the water, vapor, and everything out of it, I'd do that while I was at it if you were low on fluid. Diamond says, I got 2011 Nissan Versa 1.8 with 2 issues. Sometimes I get inaccurate readings of my gas gauge, and when I start my car up, it doesn't make any noise, but later, when I crank it up, there's a screeching noise. Hell, you probably need a new sending unit in your gas tank. You got a float. That measures how much gas is in the liquid, right? And then on the back side of it, there's a variable resistor. The resistors wear out, and then you get fake readings, and it bounces around. So you probably need to do that. Take it apart and buy the sending unit. It's doable. You take the back seat out, take the bolts over the cover, and you get to it. It's not all that hard of a job. It smells, because then your car will stink of gasoline, because you're in the back seat doing it, so the car will smell for a while. As for the squealing, you said it doesn't do it till it's warmed up. When it's warmed up and the belt's hotter, look at the belt. And if it's cracked, just replace the thing. They wear out. If you put a new belt on and it still does it, then one of your bearings is worn. So what you'd want to do is warm it up, then take the fan belts off, and then grab each pulley. And you'll probably see one of them is worn and it's dragging, like maybe the water pump's worn, maybe the alternator's worn. And when it is, and it drags, it'll squeal because it's dragging. But normally, all you need is either a new fan belt or the tensioner isn't tensioning enough and you'd have to replace the automatic tensioner. Well, Rev says, Toyota dealers tell me they're going to stop servicing the vehicles if they have over 100,000 miles. Apparently, Toyota dealerships nationwide are set to stop offering service on older model Toyotas, Lexus over 100,000 miles. I just left a Toyota dealership in Henderson, North Carolina, and was berated and talked down by the head service manager for driving a piece of crap Tundra 2007 with 224,000 miles. He said I should have never brought it to them for service. I should be ashamed of driving a vehicle with over 200K. I paid him over $400 to diagnose why my ABS skid control system's shut down. Then he wanted $1,500 in parts and labor to fix it. I put in a $14 wheel speed sensor from Amazon and it fixed it. I disputed being charged $400. They wouldn't give any money back. Instead, they berated me for driving an old truck. Dishonest to the core. That's a dishonest dealer. Plus, they're incompetent. They told you they wanted $1,500 in parts and labor, and you bought a $14 wheel speed sensor, put it on yourself, and it fixed the problem. Toyota, you should be looking into your dealership in Henderson, North Carolina, and see what these crooks are up to. Now, I doubt if Toyota's ever going to not offer servicing their vehicles over 100,000 miles. That's where they make their money, is servicing vehicles. They make a lot of money servicing. It'd be stupid on their behalf. Now, I did see this in Houston at Cadillac dealers. The one down the street from me when I was in downtown Houston told people, we do not work on Cadillacs that are over 100,000 miles. We don't work on Cadillacs that are more than 10 years old. I saw that, but that was Cadillac. It's a snob thing, right? I doubt if Toyota dealers would ever do it, but you should contact Toyota in Japan and tell them what happened. Now, I'm sure they'll give you your $400 back. Mainly, you want to report it to show how dishonest and corrupt these people are, that they wanted $1,500 to fix something that you fixed for $15. Berated you for driving an old Toyota. The whole thing about Toyota is just brag that they last so long. Well, if you never heard of the company NIO, they make electric cars in China. They now have over 800 battery swap stations in China. They even opened one in Norway. And they said they're going to have 1,300 of them by the end of 2022. They have smaller electric cars, and instead of charging the battery, you swap them. Take them out, put them in. Doesn't take all that long as it stands today. That is a very limited ability to do it. It's got to be a NIO car that uses that battery. They got to have the batteries that fit in. NIO has to standardize it all, of course. But it's a start at actually swapping batteries out instead of waiting to recharge them, blah, 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 blah. As a mass production thing, they'd say the United States said they were going to do that. Well, these stations would have to have thousands of batteries in them all charged, and you swap it. I mean, I could see it because I've used some swap things, and half the time they were crap. Here in the United States, I mentioned, you go in and then you swap the battery and find out the battery you just swapped it with didn't work or only had a quarter of a charge. I mean, I could never see it really work in the United States because people don't take care repair stuff. I could see it happening in an Asian country where they're all making sure they get the batteries all charged up and there's enough of them there. These places would have to be humongous. The average gas station can do hundreds and hundreds of cars per day, and in a week, they're going to do thousands of cars. They'd have to have thousands of batteries. Well, that takes up a lot of space. Let's face it. It's an interesting idea for delimited things. Like it could be maybe an urban thing where just like the people that get those bicycles the cities rent, they got them in different areas. You pick them up. You could have a few of them that way. But I mean, if you're talking about millions of people driving these cars, the logistics of keeping it up and running and charged and the batteries are all there. And then when you take yours out and get another one, they immediately hook that one up to get charged to return to people. That would be a massive undertaking. But for interurban stuff, I can see something like this actually working. Even the one they have today, the NIO one in China, system itself can do 312 battery swaps per day. Instead of doing who knows how many cars fill up with gas in a day, it takes 5 minutes. You can do an awful lot of cars. The battery swap, you got to take them in, you got to take them out, you got to have them there, you got to recharge them. It's not still ever going to be like filling your car up with gas, whether you charge your battery or replace your battery. It's a much more labor and time intensive thing than just filling up your car with gas. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.